Greetings in the wonderful name of our one and only invisible Messiah, now stays in mortal wealth. For George Hillich's no, so I think the second topic that I spoke about in that, so I think it was the third video back about the Russian basically management. Can't apologise for that. Yeah, communists. Basically being monotheist Christians and you basically the information that I pretty much do tell, but maybe not all of it, but definitely about the definitions of theos and theon. And so, isn't it they were claimed to be heretics, but and then everyone assassinated, murdered. But what happened next? What happened to the Trinitarians? Isn't it? They basically murdered the Tsar, and communist, communist, because wasn't it that basically I think it maybe, was it the atheists who basically took offence, that basically, uneducated, basically, triunians, who basically wouldn't know basically, a bar of soap from a two-by-two. Because isn't it they just detail the translation, but and they're reassured. And having said that, aren't they weren't we trusting the upper level of authority that their details were right? So if you should like to allow yourselves permission to actually to have a look in that, it's a minor incident compared to basically what may happen in the coming I don't know, it might be it might be a millennium or a year or two, because communism came in, and then what did the communists do to basically the Christians, like the Trinitarians, the Egyptians, the sun figurine idolaters who basically confused about the details and definition of theon and theos. And has anyone done a number, meaning, value of the definition of theos and also theon? Because isn't it quite obvious? They're definitely different words, and so they're different letters, and so how are they not got different meanings? Even in the number category, and so so without further ado, I mean, that's what happened to basically the Triunions next generation, who basically is that they thought they got away with it, but is that they had to watch basically the wannabe Good Samaritan version of Christianity, Christians, basically that basically I've identified as being actually proper monotheism Christian, is that basically because I think they were they were called basically Judaizers, Christians who wanted to follow the customs of basically of the Old Testament. But if it's all what you let you know, we aren't under the law. Sorry. I apologise for that. But yeah, the law of Moses. So we aren't under the Old Testament law of sacrifices and basically all that, but under the law of the Messiah. And in the pretext that the government basically brought forward for that. And yeah, so basically any hairdo basically influences. I think my hair's falling out there, but it's because I like the fact that God liked the Hebrew management there at the time, basically not to cut the sides of the hair or basically sort of like or the corners of the beard. And so because he liked it, I want to do it. It's not unnecessary. It's not basically sort of like it's not part of the basically sort of like the law of the Messiah in Monoir from the New Testament. But there's nothing against it. Surely, is it? So basically, isn't it? It's like the kingdom of God, basically. So nowadays, we differentiate that from being actually monotheist, but sympathises to the pathetic sort of treatment and analyze the analytic basically sort of perversion that must have occurred on lesser sort of graduates to the basically sort of to the equivalent to the Roman Empire basically I suppose there at before basically sort of the before all the judges and magistrates and that were murdered. So I say it might have been just sort of alarm bells in the lower ranks, Oh, they sort of they got it wrong. We're all going to sort of hell. But isn't it sort of the rumour started? I'm not sure. Did the rumour start somewhere? But what I mean is that having thought about sort of having thought about sort of that process basically sort of is it sort of that they were like me at one stage, and sort of so started from the ground up, and built basically sort of and built the basically sort of built the basically sort of built the basically the Russia, the sort of the Russian Empire basically sort of up till what wasn't it? I was thinking about this the other day, last week. I think basically sort of God lets things sort of go, which looks unaccounted, he hasn't reacted to. So for a while. I think maybe even to the end of Herodotus, sort of God allowed Herodotus plenty of time to repent, before I don't know sort of how he died, but I know basically it would have been a while. I think, and so a few years, and. And after murdering all those infants, so isn't it sort of God's gracious and merciful? But I can only hope that basically, we could only hope that everybody basically, repents, turns to God, as before their life ends, so they don't miss out on basically eternal basically life, worshipping God. And basically learning all about sort of him from his son, but also basically sort of learning all about the Son of God too, and what basically sort of why God, why God favoured him over Satan, sort of over Satan's performance, and basically sort of blistering attire, and basically sort of blistering attire, and all the jewels and whereas did you know basically the Son of God didn't want to beautify himself to gain attention to his appearance, to at first pretend, well at first basically draw attention to the goodness of God basically on his life, to who basically he So who basically sort of like, I see, actually, he could basically attire himself basically sort of like however he wanted. And basically sort of like, so presented as basically sort of like dignified management at first, but then started sort of like adding features to him. Usually, I used to go to a Pentecostal church basically, so, and the fashion was to colour your hair, but in multiple colours, right? Not multiple colours. It's just like a blonde, brown, normal colour, kind of like a red, sort of like had patchwork. And that was the thing there. And so it was basically sort of like a white belt. A white belt actually with jeans and sort of like some sort of thongs. Thongs actually sort of like came in too. Flip flops. And but it was announced, sort of like not about salt and pepper, sort of like that basically. So I can't remember exactly what it was, but not to enhance yourself, basically, sort of like by trying to decorate yourself, sort of like like try and basically sort of like improve basically sort of like the the smellier basically with too much basically cologne. Where you basically sort of like, you want to drive everyone away. He's got some gear on, or shit. But I haven't smelled a lot of boot for a long time. I don't know whether they've actually. Oh yeah. Anyway, he said I might get some boot. Because isn't it when they wore boot? When they were brute back in the old days. Or was it the old blue colour? The blue colour, I was trying to think of that blue colour, sort of like talcum powder. Yeah, sort of like talcum powder. Without that sort of like carcinogen additive. You're all like a killer. Go back to so Satan basically still wanted him to. And then he wanted people to draw attention how great he was at worshiping God, and then basically sort of like, and then he must have been sort of like really a good sort of like noise producer, rather than basically sort of like but later on, sort of like. I apologise, it was 13 minutes and I'm running out of time. I'm starting to run out of time again. Anyway, so whereas the Messiah, it was announced that when he became himself on earth, like in the appearance of basically sort of like himself in heaven, Colossians 1:15, he is the image of the invisible Theos, figuratively magistrate, the firstborn of all of creation. And also the prophecy in sort of like Isaiah 53, basically sort of like, he was of no appearance that anyone should desire him, desire him, so like his looks, so isn't it sort of like announcing that that's what he chose to do in heaven, and why basically sort of like, God actually sort of honoured him and loved him basically because he sort of like he wanted all the attention for God in that case, wasn't it? And that basically his information that sort of like that sort of like he had learned from God, basically he relayed back to actually sort of like to point to everyone, to direct everyone to the goodness of God. And not his beautiful and his, so he's actually, not his basically sort of like, his opposition who basically turned out to be sort of like his enemy, even in this life, presenting, he's basically sort of like his second offspring after the first one was a female who he ate as the and as the son that followed basically showed, like, you know, announced as the Antichrist.